Okay, Fat. So you've worked for the businessman. You've done a year with Billy Walters, and you've learnt a bit. And you think, what was the catalyst that made you decide to go it alone? Because you were on a guaranteed cop every year with these guys, a guaranteed win. So why did you decide to step it up a bit and do your own thing?
Well, the decision was made. I was more than willing to work for Billy a second year, and um, the offer I had from Billy to work the second year was less than the offer that I had to work first year, and I refused to. Um, I said I'm not going to do it if you're going to pay me if I'm going to make less than I made the year before. So I just said I'll just go on my own and take my chances.
And was this you picking your own selections and doing all the work, or did you have a team that you would sort of discuss
No,
things
no.
with?
When I was working for Billy, he would call and I would bet what he wanted to bet.
Yeah, but
But
when you went on your own,
well,
where
when I
where
went on my own, what I did was over the years I had relationships with I still had a relationship with the businessman who was still in business. I had relationships with other professional um, handicappers and players in the business. And so what I did was when I went on my own, I would stay in touch with them and try and do stuff to help them out. For example, let's say I walked into a casino and there was a football game that was 8 and it was good for $5,000 betting limit, and the line pretty much was 7 everywhere around town. And let's say when I started on my own, I was only betting about 2,000 a game. But my DNA was wired so that I couldn't just walk into that casino and bet plus the 8 for 2,000 and let them move the line, and it'd be like throwing $3,000 worth of value in the trash. So I would bet it for 5,000, knowing that most sharp people would take that. And then I would call around to a lot of the sharp guys that I knew and say, hey, I got an extra nickel on so and so plus 8. Would you like it? And they'd be like, yeah, yeah, I'll take it. And then call the next guy. Yeah, yeah, I'll take it. So you give out 6 nuggets plus 8 to 6 different sharp guys. Now, when you need to know something or need information, that they'll pay it back to you. So that was how I maintained relationships, by just over betting stuff that I knew I would bet that was good stuff that they would want, and offering it and sharing it, and that kept me in business. Also, I have to confess that the the guy who was in charge of the runners for Billy Walters, um, the way they worked was they had these alphanumeric pagers. So when Billy would want to bet something in the casinos, he would call his guy who ran the runners, and he would tell them, and they would type the bet, like Pittsburgh -3, and they would type it into the alphanumeric pager, and then all the runners would see it, and then they would run to the window and bet Pittsburgh -3. Well, because I had made good friends with the guy who was running the runners for Billy, he slipped me a pager. So I also always had the information of knowing what Billy was betting in the casinos when he was betting it, which was usually a good 3 or 4, 5 minutes sometimes before he might bet all the casinos on the screen and stuff like that. So that was key information that I had in my pocket that I kept very close to the vest, and was very helpful.
Has the way you've operated changed over the years since you started?
Over the years, how about from month to month? It's it, the business is the kind of business where you're basically reinventing the wheel time and time again, because you'll find an edge, and you'll sit there and you'll be doing great, and then all of a sudden the casino will either say, we're not taking this anymore, or they'll just adjust the odds so that that edge is gone. And so then you just move on to the next best thing that you can find. So you're always constantly pivoting and rearranging or changing what you're doing.
Can you tell us any edges that have now totally eroded that you used to have and that it's not there anymore?
There was when I moved to Michigan, there was I believe it was at WinBet. They had a thing where you could bet the winner of the NBA, the winner of the first half wins the game, winner of the first half loses the game. There was like 9 combinations. And I charted out like from the beginning of the year on it and looked at what the percentages were. And the percentages were too high, what they were paying on certain combinations on certain games of certain point spreads. Like I charted out for games that were like pick to 4 and then like 4 to 8 and then 8 points or higher. And then I would chart it out all the combinations and the odds that they were given in on certain spreads were too high for what was occurring. And so I would just play those regularly, and I was doing well with them, and then they eventually one day they just adjusted them, and that was the end of that.
Now, I've read a quote from you, and it's probably the one that you keep finding when you Google your name. You can't make a good bet a better bet by making a bad bet. Can you explain to us what you mean by that?
Sure. In other words, a good bet is a bet where you're going to basically beat the closing line and have value. A bad bet is basically a bet you make at a number where you could bet it anywhere all you want, and it's still going to be out there. So, for example, let's say you take plus 6 on a game, and now the line goes to 4. Okay. Some people say, oh, well, great. You took 6. Now you can lay 4 and you've got a 2-point middle. Well, you really don't have a 2-point middle because what you have is you have a good bet, the plus 6, and you have a bad bet, the -4, because the -4 is everywhere. So you can't make the plus 6, which is a good bet, a better bet by making the bad bet -4. Now, if you laid 3 when the game was 4 everywhere, that's different. But if you're just, in other words, if you're buying a bet back to place a middle, and your buyback bet is at a number that's pretty much painted out there, you're making a bad bet and you're devaluing your original bet. You'd be better off just going in with the original bet.
Okay, changing the subject here slightly. It's quite a hairy business. Well, it has been quite a hairy business being a professional gambler in America because there's a bit of a grey area between being a professional gambler and being a bookmaker. You in 2014, you could have gone to jail, accused of being a bookmaker. How realistically did you think you actually were? How near did it get to actually going to jail?
Well, it's funny you should bring that up. Well, first of all, I've always been a professional bettor. I've never been a bookmaker. And I tried to make that very clear to the district attorney in New York in the case. And I even I had set up a meeting with the district attorney and my lawyers, and they had all the DAs there and the investigators there, and had a conference, and they were trying to get me to they want to know if I would become a witness for them. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll do you one better. I said, I'll tell you everything you want to know, and you don't even have to pay me to be a witness, or give me any deal to be a witness. I'll just tell you the truth, because they were really after, their target was Spanky, and they were trying to get him for being a bookmaker and all that. And I know Spanky, he's just a bettor. It's all he does is bet. And so I said, look, I said, I'll tell you anything you want to know about Spanky, and I'll be happy to take the stand and testify to it. And so I explained to them, that how he's just a bettor, and that he's not a bookmaker. And they told me that they can't allow me to. This is the district attorney said to me, "You can't be. We can't put you on the stand as a witness if you don't understand what our truth is." And so basically, even though they didn't understand, they're telling me I don't understand. I'm in the business. They're telling me I don't understand what the truth is. So if I don't testify to what they think the truth is, then they can't put me on the stand, which is ridiculous. Now, as far as my case was concerned, they had referred to me as a bookmaker in their press release when the case first broke. And I was very upset about that. And I said, look, I'm not making any deal, or whatever deal we make, you're going to have to retract what you said in that press release. And I really didn't want to make a deal at all until they finally made me the following offer after I held out for about 2 years. And they offered me a 6th-degree misdemeanor in which I had to allocate that at some point during their investigation, I committed some crime unspecified. And that was the allocution. Now, to my recollection, during the course of their investigation, I did go over the speed limit one time. So that's basically what I allocated to. Now, in addition to that plea, they had to provide me with a letter. And here's the letter I'm going to read you the letter that they provided for me, because this is a rare piece of literature. It says, on October 26th, Steven Diano was arrested and charged with money laundering and enterprise corruption under this Queens County indictment. These felony charges have been dismissed against Mr. Diano. Additionally, in our initial press release, we referred to Mr. Diano as a bookmaker. As the investigation unfolded, it was determined that Mr. Diano is not a bookmaker, nor did he act as such within the scope of our investigation. Furthermore, it is the position of this office that Mr. Diano conducts himself legally as a professional gambler, and our office has resolved his case with every intention that he be allowed to re-engage in that profession. There is nothing in our records that would lead us to believe Mr. Diano would pose any further risk should he be allowed to resume his betting activities. Please contact us if you have any concerns. New York Queens County District Attorney. Nobody ever got one of those from a district attorney in a gambling case, but I held out for it and I got it, and that's one of my pride and joys of that case.
You fought the law and you won. Finally, Fats, America's opening up, bookmakers being legalized in places that they never were. Has that made it easier or harder in the USA for people who make their living betting?
Repeat that.
America seems to be opening up. There's a lot of states legalizing gambling. Bookmakers are going to be able to operate there legally where they weren't before. Has that made life easier or harder for people like you that make their living gambling?
Well, it was easy for about a year, and then it became harder after that, because these U.S. operators aren't interested in being bookmakers. They're interested in preying on the weakness of those who don't know what they're doing. They're interested in educating people into betting irresponsibly under the guise of supporting responsible gaming. And what they're really doing is they're taking anybody who has any kind of a propensity to win, is they're forcing them back into the offshore market. I mean, every professional gambler that I know was thrilled to death that we were going to be able to bet with U.S. operators in the U.S., but nobody ever dreamed that they were going to be the same as, you know, these places that don't let you bet. It's just ridiculous.
Is there
And that's a fight that I'm fighting constantly on Twitter. Every time they tweet about it, responsible gaming, I have a response for them. I'm very much on top of that.
and is there a one word answer for it? Is there a future for guys like you for the next sort of 10 years, professional
Well,
gambling?
yeah, there's a future. There's still the offshore market. I mean, as much as they refer to these places as illegal, my understanding of the law is it's still not illegal to place the bets. It's illegal for the bookmakers to book the bets. So, I mean, I know of no case in the United States where a person was charged with placing a bet with an offshore or illegal, quote, illegal operator. They've attempted to attack the operators, but there's no evidence of that I've seen of anybody being charged with placing the bets as a player.
Well, Steven Fats, at real_Fats on Twitter, if anybody wants to engage you about this. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.